Hello you, it's myYard here. Welcome to the channel. You're here because you heard I had some semi-unrestricted access to WWE 2K22. Well, you'd be right. I was lucky enough to be given permission to play a early build of the game. I say early, we're not talking final build of course, but certainly not the final build. A work in progress build is like what the term is used normally. And we got to play some restricted modes that were available for us to indulge and gluttonies on, such as the expedition modes as well as myGM. We did not have access to my faction, MyRise, or the showcase, and online of obvious reasons. So we were stuck with those two modes, which was enough to filter us because we were only meant to have a couple of hours of playtime, which is more than enough to get our teeth a bit wet on the subject. So there is a lot of interesting and default things to give you, and as always, because this is the whole point of me being behind my TARDIS wallpaper, is an uncensored opinion on the game. And you want me to just sum it up in a few words. Is it better than 2K20? Yes. Is it better than 2K19? That's going to depend on the online, in my opinion. The control scheme and the gameplay is what they've focused on. And Lionel said in an interview very recently that the most thing they've improved is the gameplay. And while I'm showing this, you're obviously seeing gameplay of Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and stuff like that. In my opinion, the controls are too complicated. Okay? We were discussing this when we saw the control scheme back in November, December, when they posted it with the hit list. And playing it, it's I don't think it's easy enough to pick up and play, in all honesty. To have grapples, the main grapples, in a grapple situation where you have to lock up in a grapple to then perform another grapple option, whether using the XA or B to Irish whip from that grapple state. And you don't have a long window. It's a very short window to press one of those buttons as well. It's just I get why, because it's meant to stop people holding into a lockup for too long. In tag matches and all SVRs and stuff like that, you could be in there for a long time before they wanted to do anything. I get that point, but I think it's a little bit too short. It may need to be added a little bit longer, which can be obviously patched and stuff. They've already confirmed that the pin system that we've wholeheartedly said was too slow, they've already apparently patched that. We didn't get to see it in this work in progress build, but apparently that's already been patched and will appear very soon, whether that'll be in the final build or certainly a build near to that build, I would hope. Was able to play a cage match, and actually the pin bar, just like normal modes where the ref isn't present, it was normal speed, so it was easily fixable anyway. Anywho, so with that grapple system in mind, being able to press B, you're getting a lock up. Then if you do because we're using an Xbox One controller, X in one of the directions do a different grapple, A in one of the directions do a different grapple. To choose to drag, you have to press the LB button, and if you want to do a carry grapple, you have to press RB and then the left analog stick, up, down, left and right. Instinctively, I, in more than one occasion, wanted to use the right analog stick for that purpose. I don't know if that's just from playing the previous titles and stuff. It just felt like it was in the wrong positions and all that. And it might just take more and more time to get used to that mechanics. But I think from a new player perspective, to get into those sort of control states, I think it's just too complicated. Now, mid-move reversals are still in the game. You're able to press Y. It doesn't cause your opponent to get uncounterable or anything like that anymore. It just means you've got an extra chance of countering said move. And there's a lot of new animations for these sort of mid-move reversals, and some of them look awesome and add to the feel. Countering in general, if you are stomping someone on the ground and they counter your stomp, you will now be pushed back away. It's sort of like them would brush you aside as they then get up. That means it should get into a more level playing field instead of you taking advantage and trying to hit another running grapple, running strike or whatever. The combos though, I feel are just unwarranted. And the reason being is a lot of wrestlers in real life, and it's kind of like a simulation versus arcade thing here. Certain superstars wouldn't just randomly do kick, kick, or punch, punch, kick, grapple. And there's obviously a lot of wrestlers in the game. If you're trying to remember what buttons to press, each wrestler is going to have different moves for the combos. They're not all the same button combinations. So that causes its own memory. So fine if it's your favourite superstar, don't get me wrong, and you can perfect one particular person. Multiple superstars, I think, becomes an issue. And for the countering aspect with the combo breakers, where you don't press Y to counter, you use X, A or B to perform that combo breaker. Unless you know that superstar that you're facing's moveset to know which strike is from a light button press and which is from a heavy button press, it's literally playing rock, paper, scissors with yourself and just saying, yeah, maybe it's this button, maybe it's that button, maybe it's this button. It's an issue, in all honesty, and I think it needs to be... The problem is it can't be rectified now. I think we're far too gone because that system is what's in place. I just don't particularly like it. I don't think it's necessary to have in the game, unless they want to focus more on the arcadey route, which is, there's nothing wrong with it going the arcadey route, but then you're forfeiting a lot of the simulation aspects, such as what myGM mode and spectating mode and GM mode, where you want to have it as authentic as possible. Having that combo situation doesn't add to the authenticity. It does for some wrestlers, don't get me wrong. Riddle, for instance, obviously likes to use combination exchanges, a lot of the NXT guys as well. So maybe it should be restricted to only certain superstars. Full stop. Maybe it should be an ability. We had that though in the old SmackDown vs. Raw games, where you had strikers and brawlers, and you could choose two different abilities, and the brawlers, those strikers, had the unblockable move chain combo, and it was not fun to play against, and online that was normally what got used more than anything else. Time will tell when it comes to that. Expedition modes, we had, I'm looking at a little sheet of paper so I can pay attention to what I'm saying. There was 1v1s all the way to 8-man matches. There was also handicaps and Royal Rumble. I did a quick 30-man, 8 players in the ring. A lot harder for the Rumble this time. Unless you got them stunned, then it was a lot easier. You could have got them to 0 health, and because it was button bashing, they sometimes just still weren't getting thrown over. On other occasions, you could whip them and they would just fall over the top rope, as they would in a normal Rumble match. It was still the same gameplay other than that. The handicap matches, 1 on 2 tag, 1 on 2 tornado, 1 on 3, 2 on 3 tag. I didn't notice any modes in particular from the options that weren't already in 2K20. That includes the cells and the cages, anything that was in the DLC like the scrap trap and stuff. That's still in 2K22 in this build at the time. The arenas, there was championships we got to see, and the payback systems, there's no longer 2 types of payback, there's only 1 type of payback. And from what we saw, we had blackout, we had comeback, resiliency, low blow, poison mist, power of the punch, and run in. There could be other paybacks, but not all the wrestlers were obviously unlocked. And we didn't have access to the creation suite or anything like that to be able to look at abilities or stats or anything of that nature. Which leads me to Omg Moves. The ring superplex that breaks the ring, that is still in the game, but it wasn't an OMG moment. I was trying to work it out, if it was related to having 3 finishers, or you needed the signature bar up to full if the opponent needed to be dead on health. I think it was a dead on health situation, because I tried to start at the beginning of the match with 3 finishers, didn't want to do anything on it. Hopefully the developers, or when we get the final build, we can explain what those OMG moments are done. If that's still in the game, I'd assume the steel cage one is still there too, but I couldn't seem to use it. Again, it could be because of this stipulation that I'm not aware of, basically. And Hell in a Cell, throwing them off. It seems to be easy to get out of the cell. It doesn't need to take as many whips into the cell to break free, which is probably a good thing, to be honest. You can still use a finisher to break the cell wall as well, and throwing people off is still as fun as ever. There was a big issue, which again could easily get patched, with people staying down. They don't stay down long enough at the moment. In multi-man matches, that is obviously a big issue. There's still the rollout mechanic where obviously if you take a big enough damage, you'll roll out the ring. You now become stunned, and you obviously wouldn't be able to counter. Once the stun's removed, you can get up at a quicker pace and go back in the ring, much like you could in 2K20 and beforehand. But certainly, even with certain moves, it becomes not an issue, but I think multi-man matches might just drag on a little bit, especially with TLC. So that could be a thing that needs to be patched, possibly. And it might have already been patched. Like I say, it's a work in progress build. That was just my take when playing them. One of the matches took a little bit longer, and I had to basically exit to play another match, so I had enough time to play everything else. What else? What do we else talk about? Weapons, of course. Weapons full stop. Tables. Yes, tables do break a lot cooler looking and everything. However, by adding the new physics on the tables and the chairs, for instance, with chairs break after a few hits, they've removed some of the functionality that was there before. You can still lean them in the corner, put the chair in the corner, put the ladder in the corner, table in the corner. From this build anyway, you couldn't stack them. You can set the table alight, which is still awesomely cool. And the chairs, unless again it's an ability, could easily be ability and not a functional game thing. I just didn't pick the right superstars, I don't know, but I wasn't able to do the concerto or the Pulmanizer or anything like that with putting the chair in the leg. We'll see. In times go by, you can lean the ladder on the ropes and jump off the run along the ladder like you could before as well. And of course, the tables and ladders can be positioned anywhere now. They're not restricted into certain safe zones, as it were. You can put them pretty much anywhere you like, which is a much added benefit. This video is going to be a long one. Talking of which, Backstage Brawl. Backstage Brawl has been changed to a whole brand new area with multiple levels. The downside with this, it's 1v1 only. And that's a massive shame, and it's still, as far as I know, KO only as well. There's no pinfalls, which again is a little annoying because there's cool stuff you could do on this. If you saw in the MyRise trailer, I'll try and get this chopped in at the time for editing purposes, and we'll do a proper video on the Backstage Brawl as well. You're able to go up to the top level, you're able to remove the railings, and you're able to throw people off that edge, and it's quite a drop. But you also have tables and stuff that you can move around. There is a parking lot. You'll be able to probably do the card finishes and stuff, although I never attempted to do that. Tables can be moved around this backstage area as well. It just sucks that it's 1v1 only, because it's probably the best mode that they've done. And there probably is more interactivity as well. I hope so. I just was having so much fun just throwing people off the top until they got KO'd. It was a nice thing. Reversing, which leads me into that, because reversing happens a lot because of not having the limits anymore. Unlimited counters does mean you're going to see reversals a lot. On the same token though, there will be a time the AI on more than one occasion was trigger happy by doing ground grapples, and I can see that being a major issue for online playing. Because countering in the grapple could be Y, it could be X, or it could be A in the seated position, and that's difficult to work out which move does what. Thankfully, some moves have mid-move reversals, but if you're facing created superstar guys, I'm worried that a lot of people will choose moves that don't have those mid-move reversals, and that will result in just people just being on one-sided affair almost. AI had a lovely habit, and this is probably from a gameplay perspective, it makes it easier to try and win against them. In certainly ladder matches, TLC matches, they would Irish whip a lot. So just by pressing B, if you're in a staggered state, standing up or whatever, 9 times out of 10 they're going to go for the whip and later in the match, and you're able to reverse. The reversal animation, kicking them in the stomach, them going on the knees, it's always a nice animation that I don't mind seeing constantly when you know what's happening. The stun mechanic, I was able to use on a couple of superstars. When you hit a finisher, they will become instantly stunned unless you pin. As soon as you pin, the stun gets removed. There is, with certain finishers, depending on the speed, you'll be able to hit 3 finishers while the stun bar is still going on. Also worked out in my head that if you time it right with certain finishers as well, they could be stunned while the beginning of the animation hits, get past all the mid-move reversals and stuff, and the stun gets removed, and because the finisher happens after the stun hits, stun then hits again. So you can get a chain of them being irreversibly being able to counter any finishers in a chain, which is the ultimate way of winning, of course. From an unblockable standpoint, probably a bit gameplay busting. We will see how that goes on that. Chances are, if you're hitting them with one finisher, you probably deserve to win the match anyway. But I digress. What else? Let's talk about myGM mode. myGM mode, I was able to do a 15-week GM, complete it. Got a nice locker card to use for my faction. Not being able to play my faction, it was restricted, of course. And my main gripe with myGM is it's too limited. There is not enough functionality in it. Now, you're able to spectate matches, some matches, not with interference. If you add an interfere, unless it's a myGM interference, you can't spectate. That's a little bit of an annoyance, in all honesty. The problem is you can't spectate either, as far as I'm aware. Could be wrong on that, but I didn't see the option at the time. It just skipped for each match. Spectating is cool, being able to change the camera angles on the fly while the match is happening. From a streaming point of view, if you were going to do a universe mode based on that, or using the GM mode to basically create content, the problem you have is that, and you see it in the ringside report as well, there is a display controls button, or hide display control buttons. That button is there the whole time, even if you hide the buttons. So you've got that eyesore there while you're trying to do stuff. I hope there's an option they'll patch that out. It needs to be patched out for content creators to be able to use it. Otherwise, it's going to need to have a nasty watermark up there at all times to ignore that button. But the camera angle system, I enjoyed from the time I got just put off by that button. And I know it's so trivial, but it does affect a lot of content creators. Full stop on it. The match types that were open for the GM mode, they were only 1v1 versus tag. They've confirmed that you can only have 2 championships available, the male single title and the female single title. That means there's no intermediary championships like the IC title, United States Championship. There's no tag team championships either. And from the myGM mode we played, there was only 1v1s and tag team matches. There was no triple threats, 4-ways, or any other multi-man types. There was different match modifiers like Extreme Rules, Hell in a Cell, TLC, tables match and stuff. But there's only so many matches you can do with a 1v1 in a tag, and there's only certain amount of superstars you will actually need for your brands, because you only can have 3 matches a show. Because of the algorithm and what they've said in interviews, that's all they can really do. They can't really patch any more in for this game, but certainly further iterations, there could be the possibilities to have more matches in the standard shows. 3 for the normal, and then 5 for like the pay-per-view premium events. Which 5 for the premium events is great. Having 3 matches on the standard show, it gets repetitive very quickly, and I just felt like it was a chore after 15 weeks trying to do it. And I played on hard difficulty. I did win. Didn't win the first few weeks, but then unlocking the various different pyros, the advertising campaigns, following the commissioner goals and stuff, I was able to win quite comfortably on hard difficulty. And that's obviously my first time playing a GM mode properly in years and years and years, not including a certain other mobile game that came out, of course, last year, which is slightly different, of course, for that purpose. And yeah, so I don't think people are going to enjoy it as much as that people are hyped up about. I'm going to be very, very cautious on that. I know there is sort of the share play aspect Steam has. PS4 or PS5 should have remote play. In theory, although they've not tested that, but in practice it should just work with share play. I can't see why it wouldn't, in all honesty. So there's always that, but there won't be that much sort of variety, because you'll both be using the same sort of match types. It's not like having, we're going to have a 6-man elimination chamber match or anything like that. You're limited, you're very much limited on there, which is disappointing. It sets the groundwork for future iterations. It's absolutely vital and necessary to get the building blocks in place. And I think in the next year's game, it'll be a lot better, and then probably the year after that, it would be an even better game as the series progresses. It's just right now, I don't think it's. No, you see, this is the thing. The menus are lovely. It's clean. It's crisp. A lot of thought and effort has been thought on this. It's just not in the stage I think was ready to be put out. In my honest opinion, I think it needed that extra 12 months. Because there could be the bad reputation of seeing this now and think next year, oh, I'm not going to play it now because it wasn't good enough for the last year. So that's the risk reward, and we won't know until people do it over time. I think that covers most of it that I can talk about at the moment. I will be doing a live stream the day after this video comes out if you want to ask me pretty much anything when it comes to 2K22 that I was able to get my hands on. There's certain things I won't be able to discuss, but I'll try and give you as much of an honest feedback when it comes to GM mode and playing the game full stop with the engine and stuff. It is a good groundwork. I need to stress this enough. The groundwork is there. I think the controls are too hard, and I think it's going to jeopardize certain people. I know there's people that like button bashing and stuff, but I think to do an Irish whip, it's double B. It's dragging and comboing and dragging on the mat. I think it's just some of the, and I wouldn't even say advanced. I think some of the stuff that should be used in the game should be very easy to get hold of, and still doing finishes and stuff. Running with the LT button, then you have to hold RT, then you have to do the A button, then the analog stick, and then potentially you would need to have a modifier if you've got two running finishers. It's way too many buttons for using for finishers and signatures. Way too many. The schoolboy type pins, they're still in the game as well. I remember seeing them. And ultimately, it was fun me playing. I used as much of the time I could as possible to play the game, and I enjoyed playing it. I didn't have the same effect when I was playing 2K20, and it's still up in the air if I'm going to have longevity out of this game. That will all depend on the online, and I don't know about the online yet. So stay with me, stay on the channel, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter at ITSMYYARD for more 2K22 goodness. Hopefully you've enjoyed seeing all the signatures and finishes of the wrestlers that I got hold of, plus the arenas and everything else that was on the ticket bar. Hope you saw something that you weren't expecting. I will see you next time. Take it very, very easy, and I will see you later. Bye bye.